Hi, welcome to Senior Moments Successful Aging. I'm your host, Mary Beals-Luedtke. I'm the Area Agency on Aging Director with NACOG. You can reach us at the agency toll-free at 877-521-3500. Maybe you have questions about aging, questions for yourself or your mom or your grandma. Maybe you're raising a grandchild. I don't care what the question is. If it has to do with long-term supports and services, you need to give us a call and let us help you. 877-521-3500. Senior Moments Successful Aging is co-sponsored with the Division of Lifelong Learning with Yavapai College. And our producer is Nancy Bennett. She does all the work. I just do the talking part. So give Nancy a call. She'd love to hear from you, comments about today's show, questions about our shows, or maybe you have an idea about a show you'd like to see, or maybe you want to come and be on the show. So please give Nancy a call at 717-7607. So our guest today is one of my staff. I'm very excited to bring him on the show, and that's Brandon Baxter. Hi, Brandon.
Hi, Mary. Thank you so much for having me on. It's my pleasure to be here.
Thank you. You have not quite been with the agency a year yet.
That's correct. We're coming up on a year here next month.
I can't believe it. I don't know where it went.
Nor do I, but it's exciting times at the agency.
Yes, it is. So right now your title is Family Caregiver Coordinator. So today we're going to talk about what that means and what the agency has to offer. But in addition to that, I just want to bring out that, you do a lot of work with program development and moving us towards, developing our programs so that they're available for everybody.
Absolutely, and that's the key. We have so many wonderful services out there within the community. We would like to gain access to the entire community for those supportive services.
So, and again, changing that perception of the Area Agency on Aging. Folks are like, oh, well, I'm not low income. It's not just for low income. It's for anybody who has aging issues.
That's correct. Anybody within the community can access our services. One of the largest things we do is information and referral, and that access is available to anyone. So if you have any questions on aging or the supportive services that are available within your community, by all means, give us a call at that 877-521-3500 toll-free number.
Absolutely. So what is a family caregiver?
It's a great question. Since there's 54 million of us here in the United States of America, and in the state of Arizona last year alone, informal family caregivers provided $9.8 billion in unpaid care to their loved ones.
That's staggering.
It's staggering. So family caregivers it's a broad term. It's anyone who helps care for or support a loved one. It can be a family member, it can be a friend, it can be a neighbor. If you are out there providing care and support to that individual for their daily activities, you are a family caregiver, and you can give us a call and find out what services are available for you.
And I think, even the word caregiver, sometimes people think, oh, well, I'm just picking up her mail and taking her to the doctor once a month. Guess what? You're a caregiver.
You are. You're a family caregiver. You are caring for that individual. You think about the impact you have on their life positively. You're eliminating the possibility of a fall going out to that mailbox by bringing them that mail. And we know that injuries because of falls are the #1 death of aging. So we want to take a look at those accident-related injuries and how we can bring those down. Family caregivers do that every day and don't even realize it. Some of the things we hear is that they're afraid to self-identify as family caregivers. Well, I'm not a family caregiver. I'm just helping my wife, or I'm just helping my husband, or I'm helping grandma. You are doing all of those things, but you are also a family caregiver.
And you find too, though, and I'm sure you'll have some stories about that when we get into the support groups, that folks that find themselves in this role didn't know they were going to be a caregiver.
You're absolutely right. And I think that's probably the majority of cases. It sneaks up on us all. We don't really think of ourselves of being in a role as a family caregiver until one day an illness, an injury, something unexpected occurs to where now that loved one is dependent more and more upon our care, our support, and our help. And that brings with it a whole slew of stressors that many of us had never planned for or never even foreseen.
So the Family Caregiver Program came about in 2000 when the Older Americans Act was reauthorized, and that was a really big update because the government actually sees the value of family caregivers and the need to support them, and it's obvious that $9 billion in Arizona alone would have been spent in the medical, non-medical system had those family caregivers not stepped up.
Absolutely.
So what do you do to help them, starting with that phone call?
Well, starting with that phone call is really important. When they give us a call to that toll-free number and they begin the process of getting a no-cost at-home assessment with our care coordination staff, it begins a good process of a full assessment of your services, what you can access, what's available within the community to you. That's huge to have that available from the experts in aging who know what is available within your community and what really would help you move through this process. That's how we begin. But after that, we have a whole slew of supportive services that are available. For the Family Caregiver Program, for instance, we have support groups or peer counseling to where you can come in and realize that you're not alone. You can speak with people who are going through the very same issues that you are going through. And let me tell you, there is nothing more supportive and healing than understanding you are not alone, that others are going through this or have already navigated this journey.
Do you find, because I know, and we're going to talk more about the support groups too, but do you find in some of the support groups, and I know that me working with clients in the past, I've seen that sometimes there's a guilt factor that comes out when you're caring for your mother, for instance, and maybe you have feelings of resentment every once in a while, and then you don't want to talk about it because you think that makes you a bad person.
Indeed. And we struggle with a lot of these issues because we feel the guilt of our own emotions. But let's understand that these emotions are very normal, they're very real, and they don't help to suppress. It's very helpful to talk about them because you'd be amazed at the amount of time as a family caregiver you feel like walking outside and yodeling like Tarzan just to let off some of that stress. That is a normal thing. And to talk about those stressors that are involved with your role as a caregiver is not only wonderfully healing, but it makes you realize you're not a bad person to have those thoughts. They're very normal, and it's very supportive to talk about those things, because when we repress those thoughts, that's when we begin to break down health-wise, emotionally we begin to break down, and we begin to burn out as family caregivers. We don't want to see burnout as family caregivers. We want to see you be put in a position to succeed and to help your loved ones stay in their home independently as long as possible.
And, you know, when you talk about that burnout piece too, you know, I think that's a statistic it's staggering, and I don't have the number in front of me, but the percent of caregivers who pass before their loved ones.
Yes, and a lot of the numbers will say that it's upwards of 40%, 4 out of 10 family caregivers would predecease the loved one that they're caring for. And oftentimes it is because they lose that self-care component. They forget about, I am an individual that needs to take care of me. I still need to go to the doctor. I still need to go ahead and be assessed and make sure that my health is not failing. I need to be active. I need to have friendships. I cannot pull myself away from my social interactions, sequester myself away in my house with my loved one, and forget about my life. Because those emotional breakdowns will eventually lead to physical breakdowns.
Because it's dis-ease. I mean, anytime you're not at ease, that creates physical problems. But one of the things I found with my sister, who's a caregiver for my mother, is even among our very close family, and I do this for a living, she thinks she can do it all. And so she feels like if she reaches out and asks for help, that she has failed and that we will judge her. It's like, oh my gosh.
Don't we put an amazing amount of responsibility on our own shoulders?
Ourselves. Absolutely
we do. And a lot of the time we talk about it as maybe a little bit of foolish pride. Well, this is my role. This is the role I've accepted. Therefore, it's my responsibility. But nonetheless, when we're in a work environment and we're being bogged down with work, we ask for help.
Yeah.
We need to do the same thing, whether we're being paid for the help we're giving or whether we're doing it out of the goodness of our own hearts. When we need help, we need help. And let's not be afraid of asking for it.
You know, so one of the first lines of help is the support groups.
It is.
So how are those organized and kind of what happens during the support group?
Well, the exciting thing about the support group is it's basically peer-to-peer counseling. It's other caregivers who are going through much of the same struggles that you are going through will meet together with a facilitator who will help lead the discussion within the group. But it's a very organic discussion. We discuss what the needs are currently being faced by the caregivers in the group. So one support group meeting to the next is going to be dramatically different because the needs of the individuals we're talking to are going to be different. But the neat part about it is oftentimes we have a great access to social services in these groups that people are unaware of. They come into the group thinking they're alone, there's nothing left for them to do, and they walk away with hope, with phone numbers to call, with names to contact, and with light at the end of that tunnel.
Which is really nice that it's not a train.
It is.
You know, and And you mentioned earlier that our care coordinators go out and do a home assessment.
They do.
But they also do follow-up. And I think that's important, that they don't just get a piece of paper and a bunch of phone numbers and, hi, here you go, good luck.
Correct.
So we actually try to wrap our arms around that caregiver and help them through the journey.
Absolutely, because you're right, Mary. It is a journey. It's not, well, you called the toll-free number and we gave you a list and now you're done. Because you know the journey doesn't stop there either.
No.
The journey's going to continue. So that reassessment is very valuable. We get to see if we've been effective with our peer-to-peer counseling groups. We get to see if we've been effective with maybe some of our workshop training groups for caregivers that we offer. We get to see if your stresses are going up, are coming down, are staying the same. What do we need to do to help support you to get through this role as a family caregiver? Because you're valuable to the community, you're valuable to your family and loved ones, so we need to value and support you as well. We're not going to just leave you there.
So how often do the support groups usually meet, or do they decide among themselves?
They do. Oftentimes they decide amongst themselves. We have groups that meet weekly, bi-weekly, once a month. It really is based upon the needs of the groups.
And that's nice that it is organic. So, you know, and if somebody is interested in starting, I know you keep a little file.
I do.
And people that call in, and when you get a number of people in the same area, then you try to go out and start a support group.
We start a new group. We develop the contacts with the facilitators in the region to help successfully facilitate those support groups. We find wonderfully supportive locations that are easy to access for all of our community members, and then we begin advertising for those groups in the area. If you're curious about what groups may be in the area, by all means, give us a call at the Area Agency on Aging. Ask about the Family Caregiver Support Program and talk to me. I'd love to start building a group in your area or put you in contact with an existing group.
And also we have some criteria. It's pretty simple if you want to run a group.
Yes.
You know, and I think one of the best candidates to run a group is someone who's gone through caregiving, has been in caregiving, is still in caregiving for a loved one or a family member, because you're going to bring a lot of insight to that group on what you've been through.
You understand the role better than anyone else because you lived that role.
Exactly. You know, and again, going back to that whole definition of caregiver, most of us are a caregiver, have been a caregiver, or are going to be a caregiver. And really, that's it. And we hear that a lot. You know, that's kind of a little mantra at the state level. So let's talk about the workshops. I know from time to time you have these ADL workshops. First of all, what's that mean?
Absolutely. ADLs are an acronym for Activities of Daily Living. And we refer to activities of daily living as things like eating, bathing, walking. So things like that are absolutely necessary for you to function as an individual. When you begin to have trouble with these activities of daily living, or your loved ones begin to have trouble with these activities of daily living, it presents a whole new slew of problems to us as family caregivers. Most of us aren't born with personal care skills. Most of us do not understand the techniques of transferring a mobility-limited individual from a chair to a wheelchair or from a wheelchair to a bed. All of these skills are learned skills, and we do have workshops in the area to help you learn these skills that in some cases are absolutely necessary to keep your loved ones safe and in the home environment.
And so if you want to know about this, how long are the classes?
Those classes typically are about 2 to 2.5 hours in length, and they will run anywhere to 4 to 5 class sessions depending on the workshop and how we've scheduled it. I'm going to say to you, Brandon Baxter, that I can't take the time off from my loved one to go to your class, but I'm in a pickle because I need help, and now I have to learn how to bathe them in bed, and I don't understand that. What would be your answer? Well, I would have a couple of answers for you. First and foremost, my first answer is we understand that time limitations exist and that you oftentimes can't leave your loved one home alone. Part of that assessment with our care coordination staff will determine whether or not you have access to our respite care program. To be able to have somebody come into your home to provide care for your loved one, or to have them socialized in a group adult daycare setting for respite care, so you can attend not only the support groups, workshops, but maybe even go see that doctor that you've been putting off for years because you've forgotten some of those self-care principles.
What if I want to go get my hair done?
I think it's a wonderful idea. Chances are you have so much stress in your life that having that hair appointment will definitely bring down your stress levels. And that's what we're talking about, giving you a chance to recapture some of that life that you've unfortunately had to lay down because of your caregiving responsibilities.
And I think sometimes too, you've been caregiving for a while, and you don't realize how much you've given up. I mean, it's an erosion, don't you think?
It's a slow fade, sometimes we call it. And all of a sudden, we will get individuals into the workshop, into the support group, and they begin to communicate about everything in their life and how it has changed. And all of a sudden, you have that epiphany moment where they realized, wow, things really are different. And that's big.
Yeah, it is. And it's so going back to that, so during the ADL classes, Activities of Daily Living classes, if you sign up for one of those workshops, even if you don't qualify for regular respite, you could get respite to go to class.
You could get respite to go to class. There are different qualifications for the Family Caregiver Support Respite. So give us a call. We'll do that assessment for you, and we will do our best to get those supportive services to you.
And so what other? So we've got information referral. We've got our peer-to-peer support groups. We've got Activities of Daily Living, and so what is? And you talked about respite. Let's touch on adult daycare, because we do have that in our area. We're so lucky. There's a lot of areas that don't have. We have a fine adult daycare program in the Quad City area.
What a wonderful program.
What is that?
Oh, well, adult daycare is fantastic. It's respite care. It gives you the opportunity to have a break. But the neat twist on this respite is the socialization aspect that's involved in the group setting. To have individuals come together to do activities together, that socialization is invaluable. Much of the research that exists out there will pound home the link between social involvement, emotional well-being, mental stimulation, and that physical well-being. You need to take a look at this holistic approach to care. You can't just meet the physical needs of the individual and expect to have positive outcomes.
You know, and that's why adult daycare is really a wonderful option. And you may think, oh, my loved one, can't make it there. I can't get him there. They have transportation.
They do.
They can come and pick him up. They've got different time periods that you could go. You could do a half day. You could do a whole day. So I think that's another thing for family caregivers to really consider. And the care coordinator would go over that with them.
Absolutely.
And they would see, is this an appropriate setting for your loved one?
And sometimes there's fear about maybe being in a group setting with somebody who maybe has not been in a group setting for a while. But I would encourage you to give it a try, because it may be difficult the first time, maybe even the second time. But the successes we've seen overall with that socialization is amazing. I would encourage you to give it a shot and not give up after the first couple of times, because you will be blown away at the turnaround you can see in that loved one.
And and know that there are professionals there that are trained to help that loved one through that process of the shock of the first time, and how they work with them to socialize. My mom goes to adult daycare, and I watched them. I got to watch them through a window to see how they interacted with her. I was just amazed, and they were just so respectful, and it's just a wonderful thing. But at the same time, in-home respite can be very nice as well. And one of the things I like about that, and I think people don't think about again, is they could go out to lunch with their friends, they could go get their hair done, but they could also go in the other room and take a nap.
Yes, and oftentimes that's exactly what we have. We see that caregiving responsibilities don't end when the sun goes down, do they?
No.
They continue throughout the night. So oftentimes what we don't think about is that interruption in sleep that the family caregiver goes through, whether it be every couple hours to help move that individual to avoid pressure sores and ulcers, whether it be because of incontinence issues or just sleeplessness and restlessness. You may not be able to get that sleep you need. Having the ability to take advantage of that in-home respite so you can just go into the next room and get a little sleep can be huge in keeping you happy and healthy.
Yeah, because you don't have to worry about them for the 4 hours that somebody else is there.
That's right.
And another thing we were talking about the other day with our staff even, didn't realize that someone who comes in to do respite can actually do some personal care while they're there.
They can, absolutely. So if you need assistance with some of the bathing and grooming care, that respite care might exactly be what you need to help get through some of those activities of daily living.
And so do you find that it's more difficult for men?
Well, I can say that it's really individually based. Sometimes we can get that male stoicism that comes into play to where we get in front of our own care needs because we're manly men and we don't need that care. But quite frankly, sometimes we can see that with our female caregivers and care recipients as well. So what I would say is anybody can get in the way of their own care. Try not to be an impediment to your own care. Try to be an advocate for your care and for your loved one's care.
Yeah, because I think that in some of the support groups I was involved with in the past, that in some instances, and so I'm glad you got rid of that myth, that's why I asked, is that often women have been mothers, and they've been nurturers, they've taken care of people all their lives, and so sometimes when a male has to take care of his wife in a very intimate way, we're talking pericare, turning him in bed, all those things, that's difficult.
It is. It's a change of a role, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a change of roles, and so I really encourage, and that's another thing, if we find a group that wants to have a support group of similar type caregivers, that's something that you're open to doing.
Absolutely. Okay. And we will do specific dementia groups or Alzheimer groups or Parkinson's groups. We like to do more inclusive groups as well, because I think there's a lot of value in seeing what everybody goes through.
I agree, and so don't stay away because of one reason or the other, because I think you're going to learn from everybody that's at the caregiver support group. So there's a few other programs I wanted to bring up too that really help, and that's chronic disease management.
Absolutely. Chronic disease self-management is huge, because as we know, as we age, we tend to get more and more illnesses, diseases that will pop up onto the radar. We need to successfully teach these life skills on how to self-manage and do self-care to keep these in check, because often there are a lot of simple tips and tactics that we can utilize in our day-to-day life that will keep us out of the hospital, that will keep us healthy and in the home much longer and with a much higher quality of life.
And I think the point with the caregivers is, so if your loved one has a chronic disease, and chronic disease can be chronic pain, it could be a bad back, it could be arthritis, it could be heart disease, it could be diabetes, it could be anything. So it's not disease specific. So what you can do is sign up for this class and go with your loved one and take it together.
That's absolutely a great thing to do.
Yeah, or if you feel like your loved one, maybe has advanced dementia and wouldn't gain from this, maybe you yourself could take it to help you better care for your loved one. So it's also a tool for caregivers, and we also have Matter of Balance.
Matter of Balance is wonderful. We talked a little bit about falls previously in the fear of falling within the aging population. Oftentimes we will see as an individual ages, they'll do less and less activities outside of the home because of the fear factor. They're afraid of falling. If we can overcome that fear, if we can teach them the balance techniques, the strength techniques to overcome those limitations, not only will we eliminate that fear, we will keep you active in the community longer. You'll have a higher quality of life, but your longevity will most likely be increased as well, because we're eliminating the possibility of that accidental fall and injury.
But you do have to understand, it hurts more when you get older, Brent. You're not there yet, but it does hurt more. And so, I find even myself, I'm a little more cautious when I wear heels, or I'm a little more cautious on stairs, because I know how much it hurts to fall down and break something.
Absolutely.
Because I've been there. And so, especially if you've been through a fall, then it's even harder. And so I love this program. And both these programs are evidence-based. So we know the way they're taught, you are going to get results. And so Matter of Balance is another really good one, both for the caregiver and for the loved one. And another thing that we didn't mention is when the care coordinators come into the home, they do a home safety check.
Absolutely. And that's big, because it can be simple things that we often overlook, such as a throw rug with the corners curling up in the traffic area, to where it's not when or if you're going to trip, it's when you're going to trip. You're going to eventually fall. Maybe we can find a different place for that throw rug. It could be you have all of the items that you access in your kitchen on the top shelves, and you're pulling out that chair to climb up on that chair to get everything out of those top shelves. Well, maybe there's a way we can move some of those items you use more frequently down lower, put some of the items that you don't use all that often up higher. Simple home assessment tips like that can really avoid dangerous incidents.
And it doesn't cost money.
Anything.
I mean, it doesn't cost anything. And then looking at, sometimes I walk in and do a home client and there's cords everywhere, because they've got an extension cord here and this and that and plugged in. And so really, looking at how to rearrange those cords, looking at the rugs, and also I think the self-awareness of where we put our feet.
Absolutely.
And I think you do tend to shuffle more as you get elderly. And part of that is a caution thing.
It is.
And when you don't pick up your feet, then you are more likely to trip over whatever. And I know that the little piece of the class that I took talked about really being aware of a change in your landscape. When you're walking down the sidewalk, being aware of that crack so that you are conscious, which means you can't text and talk and walk. That's
a good tip for some of our younger audience members.
Right. Age has no barrier. We start aging from the day we're born.
Indeed.
So, and Brandon, I didn't ask you, but I know you come from, not only a business line, but also you've worked with caregivers in the private field as well.
Absolutely. Was a certified caregiver myself for years, and am currently a BLS life support instructor for first aid and CPR for healthcare professionals.
And so that, you've been there, you've seen it, you've done the care, and I think that really helps when it comes to helping lead those classes. We do hire teachers for the classes, but you put that all together, and you're one of those first lines. When you call that toll-free number, they're going to send you to Brandon so that he can talk to you and find out what is it we can do to help you, and what can you do to help yourself.
That's a big component.
Yeah, and how do we empower and give you the tools so you can be successful at being a family caregiver?
You hit the nail on the head there. Much of this is about empowerment philosophy. It's about not living your life in fear and realizing that there's so much more to what we have left. We can be empowered. We can care for ourselves. We can care for our loved ones. We can navigate this home environment safely. We can.
And it's a challenge, and it's a challenge. It's living is a challenge for all of us. So please give Brandon a call. You can use that toll-free number. They'll connect you to Brandon. If he's not there, because he does travel a lot, then he'll get the message and get back to you. So it's really important that even if you don't think you're a family caregiver, think about what your role is for someone else, a loved one that you're not being paid for. And, give us a call and let us do that assessment so that we can help you through this journey.
Absolutely. And it is a journey. It's not something that you'll probably make one phone call with and stop there. So give us a call. We'd love to help you navigate this process.
Thank you for being on the show today,
Thank you for having me.
I really appreciate it, and you're an amazing addition to the staff at the Area Agency on Aging. And thank you for joining us today on Senior Moment Successful Aging. And that successful aging part is really important. So help us help you with successful aging, and that includes health and wellness, family caregiver support systems. Call us at the toll-free number, 877-521-3500. Again, thank you, Brandon. Thank you for joining us. This is Senior Moment. Until next time.